Welcome to Going Underground with me, Afshin Rattansi. 3 times a week, we're bringing you the stories that really matter in the United Kingdom as we delve past the mainstream headlines. In today's show, ever wondered why the British government doesn't condemn all Israeli aggression? A £1 billion weapons contract might be the answer. And we take a look at what the anthem to the austerity protest movement might sound like. Plus, it seems that Britain's favourite entrepreneur will stop at nothing when it comes to promoting his brand. For these stories and more, let's go underground. The UK already has armed Reaper drones operating over Afghanistan, but it seems this is not enough. A report out today by War on Want reveals that the British taxpayer has funded a £1 billion contract between Israeli arms company Elbit Systems and Thales UK to develop a new drone. Originally scheduled for completion in 2010, there's still no sign of the expected Watchkeeper drones. So in the meantime, the UK is renting Hermes 450 drones from the same Israeli company. Reassuringly, the MOD has told Going Underground that drones are used for reconnaissance and surveillance purposes only and are not armed. But the report also questions the government's stance when it comes to illegal Israeli activities like settlement building. The Foreign Office told us,
"We do not hesitate to express disagreement to Israel whenever we feel it necessary. Nonetheless, it is our close and productive relationship with Israel that allows us to have frank discussions on issues such as settlements."
That settles it then. With me is Rafif Ziada from War on Want. Rafif, welcome to Going Underground.
Thank you.
Your report saying Britain basically complicit in Israeli aggression via the use of drones. Tell us more about that.
Well, the new report is called Killer Drones, UK Complicity in the Killing of Palestinians. What we're focusing on is this new drone being developed with the Israeli company Elbit and Thales UK. The contract was given by the ministry here, the MOD, to develop a new drone called the Watchkeeper. This Watchkeeper is based on a drone that is used over Gaza, an Israeli drone that has been used explicitly over Gaza in the killing of civilians. This is recorded. So we've looked at that and seen how this technology is now being exported into the UK to be integrated into the MOD.
And the company's called Thales. It's a French company. This is the British subsidiary of it.
This is a joint venture between this company, Thales UK, and Elbit, which is an Israeli company that specializes in the productions of drone and surveillance equipment. It also has given surveillance equipment to the apartheid wall, but largely it's been the major producer of drones that are consistently used over Gaza. And War on Want has partners in the Gaza Strip, and talking to them and working with our partners on the ground, we've seen the effect of these drones on the civilian population of Gaza, the terrifying psychological impacts on children that are running outside of their classrooms because they're afraid that these drones will bomb. They don't know when these drones will attack them. So tracing that, we thought it was inappropriate and absolutely wrong for the UK to be developing such a drone with an Israeli company.
How did you find out that the British Ministry of Defence, who are presumably aware of the killing, the ongoing killing in the siege of Gaza, that they wanted to involve themselves in? What quantities are we talking about? How did you find out about it, and how much money are we talking about?
The contract is for 54 of these Watchkeeper drones. The money so far has been just under £1 billion. So this is a terrifying amount of money if you consider that we're in a time of austerity. We are told that there shouldn't be any spending, and we see the military budgets keep going up. So we're speaking about nearly £1 billion. But worse than just the amount of spending is the fact that this program has been an utter failure. It was meant to be ready in 2010. They were meant to be used in Afghanistan, and they haven't been. And to this day, we don't know when it will actually be in service. Not that we want it to be in service soon, but it just shows how it's been mired in delays right from the beginning, and it's simply not working, and it's just wasting more taxpayers' money on a program that essentially is using the same model that is used against Palestinian civilians.
And I understand vis-a-vis Anglo-Israeli contracts on the Ministry of Defence, it's not just this case, the development of this new drone. At the moment, Britain is renting Israeli drones?
Well, because this Watchkeeper program has been such a bad case and hasn't been developed, what the ministry has been doing is actually renting drones from the Israeli company Elbit, from this joint venture, and using them in Afghanistan. That's actually the Hermes 450 model that the Watchkeeper is based on, is being rented by the hour. So more taxpayer money is being spent on this way on Israeli technology.
But the Foreign Office, of course, has condemned the expansion of Israeli settlement activity, just as the White House has. What's the mismatch between the Foreign Office and the Ministry of Defense?
This is precisely why we put out this report, to say that the UK government is basically speaking out of both sides of its mouth. On one hand, we say no settlement development, and there was the statement from the FCO saying that British businesses shouldn't deal and work with the settlements. Yet on the other hand, we see a massive arms trade with Israel to the tune of £7.8 billion in arms licenses going on. So one of our major campaigns is the Stop Arming Israel campaign, to highlight that you cannot say you condemn the settlements but at the same time continue an arms trade that is this strong. Israeli companies in particular market themselves and boast to the rest of the world how their equipment is field tested. Essentially what this means is that they are tested on the bodies of Palestinians. So what we're seeing is this major marketing around the world, most of it being exported. So in a way, the British government is supporting Israeli aggression, giving it a green light by continuing this arms trade.
But isn't that precisely what the Ministry of Defense are doing? But they might make no bones about it, no secrets about it. It is being effective in the targeting of Palestinian children. Therefore, Britain wants them to help target insurgents in Afghanistan trying to kill British troops.
Well, supposedly there are some human rights standards that the British government should be working to, and in the arms trade specifically, arms that are being sold or exported and imported shouldn't be used for human rights violations. And here we have very specifically drawn the human rights violations that these weapons are accused of doing. So the British government should not be trading in any way, shape or form with the Israeli government that has a proven record of human rights violations and not adhering to any United Nations resolutions so far.
And is it only Britain, Israel and the United States that are involved in this drone program, race for drone supremacy?
Well, so far armed drones have been used by these three states. Others have them, but Israel is the world leader in the export of drones. 41% of drones worldwide were exported from Israel between the years 2006 and 2011. And although we hear quite often the US case and the drones program, the CIA drones program, and to a lesser extent we hear about the UK, what no one speaks about is the Israeli drones program. And today they are the world leader and pioneer. And this is very much the case because they use the occupied territories as their testing ground for this equipment.
So that must have repercussions for British positions when it comes to any so-called peace process.
Absolutely. The British position on the peace process right now has been extremely lacking, essentially tail-ending the US position, not having any strong say. And what we're trying to push for is for the British government, if they are going to intervene, to actually intervene in a positive way that supports human rights and international law.
With a two-way embargo?
Absolutely. There must be a two-way arms embargo. When we know that these weapons are being used for human rights violations in a consistent manner, when we have recorded Palestinian children and the effect these weapons are having on Palestinian children and Palestinian civilians, we can't ask for anything less than an arms embargo on a state like Israel. And Palestinian civil society came out very clear and loud in 2011, asking the world for solidarity in this manner and asking all of us to call for an arms embargo on Israel.
Well, maybe it's not too late. I mean, William Hague, who, as I say, is Foreign Secretary, being vocal about the settlements. The Watchkeeper isn't ready. You say it's, even on a utilitarian basis, has been a disastrous contract. Is there time for the Foreign Office to cancel the contract? When is this thing going to be ready?
They don't know when it's going to be ready. They haven't told us when it's going to be ready, yet they keep spending taxpayers' money on this complete failure that we don't know when it will be in service. And as I said, we don't want it to be in service because supposedly the war in Afghanistan is going to be over soon. They're telling us the troops are going to leave. So why are they purchasing and developing these drones? And this goes to speak about the British government and the British arms trade, which we should be opposing because it is being used in these horrendous ways in these occupations and these wars.
If they get the Watchkeeper drone, they already have these American Reaper drones, which they're using ever more. We've covered this on Going Underground, where they're using more armed drones and firing on people in Afghanistan. How far is the UK in contravention of international law when it uses this Israeli joint fighter drone, let alone the other ones?
Well, in the last strategic review, Cameron very specifically said we want to spend more money on drones. If you see what's happening in Afghanistan, he said this was successful. Now these drones, UK drones, are actually being controlled from the Lincolnshire Air Base. Before, they used to be controlled from Nevada. So the UK is extremely committed to growing this industry. We oppose this industry because it's clearly having horrendous effects on people, and the United Nations rapporteur on extrajudicial assassinations has said that this is eroding international law and something must be done about it.
Rafeef Ziada, thank you for going underground.
Thank you.
Coming up in part 2, watched the Mandela Memorial yesterday? Wonder what he had in common with one of our top entrepreneurs? Plus, after all the hype of the SOCA rebranding, has anything changed since it became the National Crime Agency? Join us after the break to find out. You don't see too many X Factor contestants singing about the government's welfare cuts and mass austerity measures. Big record labels want nothing to do with it. But musicians have always been vocal and critical of politicians, expressing their anger through their music. But welfare cuts and zero-hour contracts are spurring on some artists, and they are providing a soundtrack to the anti-cuts movement.
You persecute the vulnerable, it's tinged with irony. It turns out all these years you've been living rent-free.
A man who goes by the name of Captain SKA is doing just that. His most recent single, Nothing, 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 a reggae tribute to Ian Duncan Smith and the dreaded bedroom tax.
You, there's just nothing, nothing, nothing nice to say about you. There's just nothing nice about you.
Captain SKA, welcome to Going Underground. We'll get onto your new single in a second. Ska music, very popular in the 1980s, around Coventry, I think it was. You're bringing it back in this age of austerity.
Well, I like to think it's, you know, it's good fun, party music, and, you know, it's great for getting the message across. People can have a party, and they can also get the political thing going as well.
Is it those minor chords? Is it
yeah,
the
it could be,
beat?
although our new single's in a major key, actually. So, yeah, but mostly minor. Minor, fast.
And of course, then we had, or at least just after the ska revival of the 80s, we had Red Wedge. Nothing. Are you all alone at the moment?
Well, I don't think I'm all alone. There are some other artists, but yeah, I am a little bit alone. There doesn't seem to be many people doing political stuff, and that's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing it.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think lots of big major artists are quite scared to, you know, really say what they mean. Lots of people I've met as a freelance trumpet player, they've got that political thing. They understand how bad austerity is, but I think they're a bit scared. I think they're scared to actually say what they mean. I think they're scared of their record companies. They're scared of not making the money. It's a big problem.
But at least you think the big artists are aware that there is some kind of austerity going on?
I think they're aware of it. I think they are aware of it. And, you know, my message to them is, come on, get out there. It's the worst cuts to our welfare state we've had in more than a generation. Do something about it with your music.
And as for the unsigned bands, what if the record label says, get rid of the politics?
Well, I say stick with what you're doing, stick with the message, because actually I think people in this country are waking up a little bit at the moment, and I think political music is on the comeback. So I'd say stick with it, see where it goes.
But quite a thing to ask of a young musician on the cusp of great success, hopefully, and some money finally getting paid for their music, and being told, look, just try and turn it into love song.
With the younger generation, and I know this generation well because I teach children as well as being a trumpet player, and we've never had such high youth unemployment. With that generation have never had it so bad, and they're angry. And they're wondering what they're going to do with their futures. So I think that generation are becoming quite political, and I think that's exactly the right place where this music could maybe fit in well.
You don't think there's a general disillusionment and apathy with politics that makes them think, no, just think about personal love and not international love?
Of course, you know, there's a little bit of disillusionment, and I blame, obviously, Nick Clegg a lot for that, because there's an entire generation of people who trusted him. Tuition fees, EMA, and they went out and they voted for him, and look what happened.
Do you think corporate power influences the music industry more than it, say, did back when...
Without
Red
doubt.
Wedge was
Absolutely, without a doubt. You know, musicians, it's hard enough being a musician in this country anyway. And I think, obviously, the big artists, the well-known artists, obviously are slaves to their record labels and have to some extent, toe the line. And, you know, I congratulate people like Plan B who have come out and done some political music. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
But I suppose people like Plan B and yourself, quick to sometimes be critical of talent shows like X Factor, which are very popular in Britain. Not much sign of political music there on
No,
X
there's
Factor.
no sign. You're never going to see political music in the X Factor. Well, you know, I think when you have the mainstream media run by empires such as Murdoch, I think it's just shut down before it's even started. It's not going to even be a contender on shows like that. And that's why shows like this are fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
But no, it's not even as if the young artists that are auditioning on programmes like that, none of them have come out and said they banned us from wanting to do a cover of, I don't know, Stand Down Margaret by The Beat or whatever.
Well, I don't know. You know, you get a lot of people applying for those shows and you really don't know what people apply. I suspect there have been some political acts who've wanted to go on X Factor and Britain's Got Talent. Perhaps they haven't got through. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there were some anti-austerity bands that were trying to get on and just haven't made it.
Well, the new single is out before the album in January.
That's right, yeah.
Focusing on Ian Duncan Smith. Why pick on him?
At the moment, a quarter of children in this country are living in poverty. By 2015, there's going to be 600,000 more. The gap between rich and poor has never been greater. 2/3 of people affected by bedroom tax are disabled, and even the IMF have come out and said that austerity, these cuts, are regressive. They disproportionately affect the poorest 10% in society. What is there to like about Ian Duncan Smith and his policies?
Very little. I can answer to that. Yeah, the statistics are something. The statistics on your YouTube channel, presumably quite comforting that people are responding to this message against
Yeah, you know, it's very comforting to me. I started Captain SKA really just with frustration at some of my colleagues in the music industry not really doing anything about anti-austerity, and also really looking at some of the children I work with as a trumpet teacher and seeing they're missing out on music education due to these cuts. And I'm really, really appreciative of people who watch the channel, who spread the tunes around, because yeah, it's heartening to see that people are responding to this music.
And the Trade Union Congress called your song Liar Liar an anthem of the anti-cuts movement. Can we expect that on the album and the other songs as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's an anti-austerity vibe that goes through the whole thing. Not every tune is actually UK politics. We've broadened it a little bit. So we've got a single coming out end of January, which I don't want to say too much, but it's looking at a previous UK Prime Minister and his relationship with a certain country in the Middle East. So that single is also coming out in January.
Will it get played on the radio? I noticed the BBC just held an inquiry about the anti-Margaret Thatcher song during the Thatcher funeral. Well, they said, well, look, it's in bad taste when you have songs that insult politicians, dead or alive.
I hope it does. Liar Liar got some radio play, which was great. Massive shout out to Terry Christian, who was the presenter in The Word all those years ago. His radio station up in Manchester, they've been playing some of my tunes. So, you know, there is a little bit of Captain SKA on the FM airwaves at the moment. Hopefully there'll be some more. And just a reminder, the album's out? End of January 2014. Thank you for going underground. My pleasure.
19 companies are currently under scrutiny for criminal offences after hiring now convicted private investigators who unlawfully obtained personal data on up to 125 victims. The names of the companies are classified, but several of them have emerged, and they include global firms and household names. The Serious Organised Crime Agency, or SOCA, first learnt of the crimes in 2006, but chose not to investigate the companies at the time. Now, Britain's Information Commissioner has ordered that the case be reopened with the help of the National Crime Agency, which is basically a rebranded name for SOCA. So the same people who sat on the case for years, apparently doing nothing, have again been told to investigate. With me is Mark Lewis, who precipitated the end of Britain's best-selling newspaper. Mark, welcome to Going Underground. 100 top blue chip companies, now it's 19. The serious organised crime agency dropped the investigation. Why are they suddenly looking at these amazing, well-known companies all over again?
I think they're looking at them because they have to look at them. They tried to keep a secret down, not tell anyone what was happening, not telling anyone what they knew, and of course it starts to get out and investigations have to happen.
Hiring corrupt private detectives, is that the remit of the investigation?
Ultimately, that's what it's about. I mean, they would say, the organisations, that they didn't know that the detectives were corrupt or engaged in corrupt manners, but some of the information that was provided to them could not really have been obtained any proper way.
How do you mean?
So, for example, if I said, I want you, Mr. Detective, to find out some financial information about such and such a company or such and such a person that I'm going to deal with, and you pass me, the detective agency passes me the bank statements. Well, there's only two ways that could have been given. One, the person that was being investigated volunteered their own bank statement, or somebody else.
This isn't just going into, I don't know, credit rating agency on the internet.
No.
How much are they paying these big companies?
Somebody's lied to the bank in order to get proper core material, financial information, bank statements, details of what's going on in the boardroom, basically spying, basically cheating.
So these are big companies, some of them who may be known to all our viewers, paying a private detective to find out information, and it's not just information available on the internet. That's why they're paying them lots of money. How much money?
I would have thought that the scope involved is hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds in order to find out information which is very valuable. Information is everything. It's got a huge value. So you might be doing, a large company might be engaged in a multi-million-pound deal and might be able to save itself 10 or 20 or 100 million pounds on a deal if it can find out something that's valuable.
But why would SOCA sit on the case for so many years?
Well, I think they'd had the information, not known how to use it, not had an appetite to...
Not knowing how to use it.
Not knowing how to use it, not having an appetite to use it. They've probably seen it as a victimless crime and perhaps too much trouble. One of the things that they were saying at the time is that it would lead to a lot of people losing their jobs. But that's akin to saying, well, don't prosecute this burglar because he's got a wife and child to feed.
That seems utterly absurd, doesn't it?
It is an absurd, it's an absurd explanation, but it certainly seems to be the one that was being offered.
It'd be like if all the banks started gambling money and losing a lot, the taxpayer had to bail them out.
Well, I think you might find that has happened.
Oh, yeah. As to the rebranding of SOCA as the NCA, or they could have chosen FBI maybe, but maybe it doesn't fit in the acronyms, they're hiring the same people from SOCA.
Well, they probably didn't choose FBI because they only had to change part of the sign rather than the whole sign. It's good governance. It's cheaper for doing it. It works.
Why not come up with a completely new organisation?
A rose by any other name would smell so sweet. It's the same organisation. It seems to have the same people working for it. It's time for them to, I mean, they have to explain it, but they seem to distance themselves by changing their name, but not really changing the organisation.
Does the rebranding of SOCA into the NCA, but employing the same people, just show they're not really very interested at all? The government is not interested in getting to the bottom of all of this.
Well, it does seem that there's just a change of name rather than a change of organisation. If new people were involved, new investigations, new processes, then people would have confidence in what it was doing. If it's the same people, it doesn't really matter if it's got a different name, it's the same organisation.
Mark Lewis, thank you for going underground.
Thank you.
Sir Richard Branson, our most famous business magnate, or Dr. Yes, according to his Twitter, never misses a PR opportunity. As millions were paying tribute to Nelson Mandela last week, he once again showed the world the kind of marketing skills that helped him build his billion-dollar business. Sir Richard used his BBC Newsnight appearance to tell the world how South Africa's legendary political figure got involved with his chain of gyms on the day of Mandela's death, A post also appeared on Virgin's website, listing all the ways in which Mandela helped South Africans become, quote, part of the Virgin active family, close quote. Oh, and Richard Branson's company also reminded us not to forget the last time Nelson Mandela flew on a Virgin plane. Join us next time as we go underground to bring you the latest beneath the mainstream from around the UK. Don't forget, you can drop us a line on Twitter at underground_RT, like our page on Facebook, or email us, goingunderground@rttv.co.uk. See you on Saturday.